What if you woke up on a spaceship, light years from home, and discovered you were the only one awake, but then found out it wasn't an accident? In this thrilling tale of survival, betrayal, and redemption, two passengers must face impossible odds to save their ship and each other. But when every decision comes with a price, will they make it to their destination? Stay tuned to find out. The interstellar spaceship Avalon travels silently through space, headed for the colonized world, Homestead 2. On board, 258 crew members and 5,000 passengers are in deep hibernation, and the ship is running on autopilot. Suddenly, the ship enters an asteroid belt. Its shields weaken, and power is diverted to the main shield. Despite the effort, a massive asteroid collides with Avalon, causing several systems to malfunction. As the ship begins automatic repairs, one hibernation pod unexpectedly activates. Inside is Jim Preston, a mechanical engineer. Groggy, Jim is greeted by an automated system that informs him he's been in suspended animation for 120 years and that the ship is just 4 months from Homestead 2. It promises a luxurious journey for the remainder of the trip. Jim is given his ID band and instructions on how to enjoy the ship's amenities. Excited to meet others, he prepares himself and ventures out. But when he joins what should be a group learning session, he finds only a hologram teacher. The hologram explains that Earth became overpopulated and expensive, prompting colonization efforts. When Jim tries asking why he's alone, the hologram can't answer. Determined to find others, Jim explores further. He reaches the main concourse, which is eerily empty. An automated help desk offers assistance, but Jim insists on speaking to a real person. It directs him to a steward, but no one is there. Frustrated, he requests to see the captain, only to discover that the bridge is inaccessible and the crew is still in hibernation. Jim finally visits the ship's observatory. Here, the harsh truth hits him. The ship is actually 90 years away from Homestead 2. Panicked, he rushes to the communications center and sends a message to Earth, pleading for help. The system informs him that a response will take 55 years. Jim realizes he's truly alone. In search of comfort, Jim stumbles upon the ship's bar and is relieved to see another person. As they talk, he notices something unusual. When the bartender serves a drink, Jim realizes he's an android. Jim often visits the bar to talk with Arthur, the android bartender. Desperate for answers, Jim struggles to explain his early awakening, but Arthur can't offer any solutions. The next day, Jim wakes up in his cabin and heads to the cantina. There, he discovers most of the menu items are reserved for gold-class passengers. He starts brainstorming ways to fix his hibernation pod. After gathering tools, he tinkers with the pod, climbs in, and waits, but nothing happens. Determined, Jim tries to access the crew's hibernation chambers using the same tools, but they remain locked. Meanwhile, small malfunctions continue to pop up around the ship. With no one else to talk to, Jim keeps returning to Arthur for company. During one of their conversations, Arthur suggests Jim make the most of his time. Inspired, Jim breaks into a gold-class cabin to indulge in the ship's luxuries. He tries high-end restaurants, games, and the entertainment systems. But even with these distractions, the loneliness becomes unbearable. One night, drunk and despondent, Jim wanders the hibernation pod area and stumbles upon an airlock with spacesuits for spacewalks. Impulsively, he dons a suit, enters the airlock, and steps into space. Floating in the vast expanse, he's awestruck by the view. He's the only conscious human in the universe at that moment. But the awe quickly fades. Feeling hopeless, Jim returns to the ship, removes the suit, and heads back to the airlock without it. He pulls the lever, ready to end it all. At the last moment, he changes his mind, rushing back inside, only to slip on a bottle. As he stands, his eyes land on a woman in one of the pods. Intrigued, Jim searches her files and watches her passenger interview. He's captivated by her personality, her dreams, and her writing. Soon, Jim spends his time reading her work, sitting beside her pod, and discussing her with Arthur. Obsessed, Jim reflects on the cruel irony of his situation. He left Earth seeking a better life, woke up too early, and now, he's found his ideal companion, who remains unreachable. The thought of waking her up torments him. He confides in Arthur, but the android doesn't grasp the moral dilemma. Jim knows waking Aurora would condemn her to share his fate. At first, he resolves not to do it, but as time drags on, his isolation and longing wear him down. Eventually, he gives in. One day, he activates Aurora's pod. As she wakes, Jim hides, watching her go through the same disorienting process he did. Later, he finds her in the main concourse, confused and frightened, just like he was a year ago. Jim reveals to Aurora that they're the only two people awake. He takes her to the observatory, showing her the breathtaking view of space. However, he explains the dire situation. They can't access the crew or the ship's main controls. Aurora panics and demands to be put back in her pod, but Jim breaks the harsh truth. There's no equipment on board capable of reactivating hibernation. They're stranded. Back at the concourse, Jim advises her to rest, as hibernation recovery takes time. Aurora sympathizes with his loneliness, realizing he endured over a year alone. Later, Jim confides in Arthur, instructing the android to never reveal that he was the one who woke her. The next morning, Aurora begins her routine, seeking answers. She consults the info desk about hibernation, but finds no solutions. Jim joins her, and they share breakfast. Aurora, noticing Jim's monotony, orders from the gold-class menu, surprising him. Determined not to give up, Aurora scours the ship, from the infirmary to research logs, even attempting to break into the crew's chambers. Meanwhile, malfunctions escalate, further unsettling Jim. Aurora, trying to cope, channels her frustration into writing and exercising. During a casual interview with Jim, she learns his dream of building a meaningful life on the new colony. In the observatory, she shares her own story, a journalist on a round-trip mission, hoping to craft the greatest story ever told. As Aurora's hope wanes, Jim lifts her spirits, introducing her to the ship's entertainment: dancing, movies, basketball. He even crafts a miniature Chrysler building as a gift. Their bond deepens, leading to a romantic spacewalk where they float together in the vast expanse. Their relationship blossoms, sharing meals, exploring the ship, and celebrating milestones like Aurora's birthday. During a special dinner, Jim prepares to propose, but is interrupted when Arthur, oblivious to the secret, tells Aurora that Jim woke her up. Shattered, Aurora confronts Jim, then storms off, moving out of his cabin. Their relationship deteriorates as Aurora wrestles with betrayal. Jim pleads for forgiveness, confessing his love, but Aurora can't reconcile with the life he stole. Tensions are interrupted by a critical system failure. Malfunctions worsen, elevators stall, food dispensers glitch. One day, Aurora notices a tree Jim planted in the concourse, a symbol of life amid desolation. Suddenly, a voice over the comm asks about the tree. They rush to find Gus Mancuso, the deck chief, awake and investigating the ship's issues. After hearing their story, Mancuso takes them to the bridge, discovering widespread system failures. They'll need to manually check the systems to diagnose the ship's critical errors. As malfunctions grow more dangerous, the trio prepares to confront whatever's threatening their survival. Mancuso demonstrates how to collect the ship's data, dismissing Jim's concerns. While inspecting the hibernation pods, Jim arrives, revealing he's uncovered the truth about Aurora's pod. Mancuso is horrified by Jim's actions, but there's no way to reverse it. Later, on the bridge, Mancuso analyzes the collected data. Aurora confronts him, seeking answers about her pod, but he admits there's nothing he can do. Jim enters carrying the 16th malfunctioning robot. Mancuso, weakened by hibernation sickness, leaves to rest but collapses, coughing up blood. That night, Aurora, restless, takes a swim. Suddenly, gravity fails. Trapped in a floating pool of water, she nearly drowns before gravity restores, allowing her to escape. Meeting Jim, they rush to find Mancuso. Together, they uncover a critical failure from 2 years prior, leaving the ship's systems dangerously overburdened. Unless they fix the root cause, the ship will fail, leaving everyone stranded. While searching for the issue, Mancuso collapses. Jim and Aurora rush him to the infirmary, where they learn his condition is terminal. In his final moments, Mancuso passes his ID bracelet to Jim, urging them to save the ship. Shortly after, the ship jolts violently, signaling another system failure. Aurora and Jim race to engineering. On the way, Arthur malfunctions and Jim deactivates him. In engineering, they discover a breach in the hull caused by an asteroid. The hatch opens, sucking Aurora toward the breach. Jim manages to seal it, but more breaches follow. They trace the asteroid's damage to the reactor control computer. Jim finds replacement parts, but venting the reactor manually fails again. Realizing the external vent must be opened, Jim suits up, handing Aurora Mancuso's bracelet. She pleads with him to return. As temperatures spike in the reactor room, a bolt injures Aurora. Outside, Jim struggles to bypass the vent door. He warns Aurora he must hold it open manually, risking his life. Despite her protests, Jim insists, and she vents the reactor, saving the ship. The force of the venting knocks Jim loose, breaking his tether. With oxygen depleting, he radios Aurora, apologizing. Desperate, she dons a suit and races to save him. Her tether falls short, but she grabs his and pulls him back. Dragging Jim to the infirmary, Aurora discovers he's lifeless. Using Mancuso's bracelet, she overrides protocols, initiating emergency resuscitation. The medical pod revives him, and Aurora forgives him. Later, they honor Mancuso with a space burial. Jim reveals the medical pod can act as a hibernation chamber, offering Aurora a chance to sleep through the journey. Instead, she chooses to stay with him. Together, they build a life aboard the Avalon. Decades pass. When the crew awakens, they find the ship transformed into a vibrant paradise. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more exciting movie summaries. Hit the bell icon to never miss an update.